today. We're going to keep rolling along because we got to get Johnny in. We're way behind. So let's talk to Johnny.
I also want to know, did she get off?
She
I hope she got off after all that.
she got a reduced sentence. Like, well, she didn't have to serve any time, and they lowered her fine. So.
I'd be suing them.
Oh, I would too.
So,
yeah.
And that would cover the fine.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, $100 fine. So, oh, okay. So now all of the web pages are just. Oh wait, oh no, they're back. Okay. It was trying to say that the web pages were all crashing, and of course all of my notes are on Google Docs and everything else. So I was. And I can't even see the mouse. There we go. Okay. Yeah, it's just like technology at its worst today. It's like I don't know what happened. I just took the computer to the doctor too. You would think it would be doing well.
Should go back to carrier pigeons, homing pigeons. That's what we should do.
Yeah, we should do something. It's just I don't know. Maybe it's all the times I've pounded on it for not working, but I mean you got to do what you got to do. So, yeah, outrageous. But glad to see that the judge was adamant. I mean, if you watch the video, she's like really, really pissed, really adamant about getting to the bottom of this, and I thought it was nice because usually, you go in there and it's like, I don't know.
Usually you go in there, so you do this frequently.
No, me. They see who I am and then they let me go.
Oh,
I
see.
you know how it is when you're when you're a big shot. They know who you are and they just let you go. No, but I don't know. When you go in there, it always seems like when you go in for like a traffic violation, it's like you're like guilty. That's it. There's no question about it. You're done.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's nice to see a judge being
Actually, in
compassionate.
fairness, though, I was doing like 80 on the turnpike in a 70, and this cop wrote me a ticket for doing 95. And I showed up for court, and before we even went, he said, I was wrong. He said, there's no way you're doing 95. And he went and told the judge he was wrong, and I didn't get a ticket.
Wow.
And I thought, is he on like shrooms? Like, what's going on? Like, this is really awesome.
Yeah, that is cool. I've had the complete opposite experience where I would go in and I got a ticket for an offense that didn't make sense. They said I passed the cyclist of Pittsburgh, and trust me, if anyone knows, the cyclists are my sworn enemy, so I would know if I passed the cyclist. But I did not pass the cyclist. I've never seen a cyclist on this road. It was coming through the West End, going towards like the West End Bridge area, if you know where I mean. So anyways, I get this ticket in the mail, and the times don't add up. So I go to work, and I look at my time clock, and the ticket was issued at a time after I had already punched into work. And so I thought that was odd. It was for an offense that I didn't commit at a time when I was already at work, and then I go there at the day of the the proceedings, and the cop comes up to me and he's like, "Oh, we sent you the wrong information, and the time was wrong because of this," and he had a million excuses. And unfortunately, I had to take a deal because I drove for a living, and I couldn't take a chance of the magistrate throwing the book at me. And I mean, when you were there, every single person had a reckless driving cause, charge, which will automatically lose you your license. So even like the most minor offense, they were throwing that at people. That way they could make a deal, and people would just say, "Oh, at least I didn't get this." That was always just like the kind of the mindset.
It's lovely.
Yeah. So guilty until proven innocent is the way it was, at least in that courtroom that day. But we're here to talk about your book, and we're here to talk about the band. You guys are having your last performance.
We are.
And that's going to be at Mr. Small's. What date do we have for that?
It's August 20th.
August 20th. And are you going to be in the Funhouse, or are you going to be in the main stage? The main stage? Very cool. So this is the last show. So the last show of the show.
It is.
And why? What happened? Are you guys just get people going different directions, or?
Well, very... Brandon and I kept it to ourselves for a very long time that this would be the plan based on how circumstances would go this year. He and I, over the last, especially since we did these demo recordings with John Stecker from Johnny and the Razorblades at Razorblade Studios, we've gotten a lot of opportunities and a lot of different things that we would be able to do and projects we could work with, both involving the both of us as songwriters and some separate opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And there were things that we had to pass up for the sake of the band. And a lot of those offers didn't really have an expiration date. And one in particular is very good news for Brandon and I. So, and it's not something we can talk about quite yet.
Okay.
But it's really not. It's the timing of all this was absolutely perfect at the end of the day, and you know, when you're in a band for 9 years and you're writing, the thing that usually came down to when we'd approach different promoters or labels was the songwriting. The first thing they always complimented was the songwriting, and that's something that Brandon and I always knew that we could do a lot with, and will probably continue to do a lot with. But it's you hit a wall creatively at a certain point when you play with musicians who are locked into one certain genre, or they think they're very versatile in their influences in music, but they only at the end of the day listen to, like, you know, stuff that you could turn on the radio and hear. And the stuff they don't turn on the radio and hear, they listen to the most obscure stuff. And it's been true for the past, like, 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it was from day one, our first drummer, and Mark's here with us, who produced our first record, which is really weird and cool. But our first drummer listened to, like, nothing but, like, reggae and 311. And Jeff Betts, who played bass on that first record, you know, at the time, as I recall, listened to almost nothing but Iron and Wine and obscure stuff that he would find. And the prerequisite, I think, to what Jeff was listening to at the time was that no one that wasn't in, like, a college, like, if it was mainstream, if it was a hit, he wasn't allowed to listen to it. So that's just the way it went the whole time. If you're in a band and you've got musicians who listen to everything and like everything and are very versed in music, then you're in a good lineup. But so there wasn't really a why. Is this something we've talked about since winter?
So you thought it was just like a matter of time. This is the time that you felt was.
Yeah, and there was two opportunities in particular, and you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but the opportunities really only allowed space for Brandon and I. And one of those opportunities we're still able to capitalize on. So that's something we're going to be looking into in the next 2 or 3 months. It's definitely something that's happening, but the details of it are going to be forthcoming.
That's got to be a hard transition when you've been together for so long to kind of hang it up.
No,
not
at all.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of like, you know, like your favorite ride at Kennywood. You could ride it 10 times in a row, and then eventually you're going to say, I think I'd rather go get a funnel cake.
Okay.
So
I can see that. So
we're going to have ourselves a funnel cake with strawberries now.
Very cool. So you're multifaceted. You're not only are you a musician, but you're also a writer, and you have a book that you just put out. And so tell me a little bit about your book, 20-something. How did you? What brought about the idea? What made you decide to put this together?
Oh, well, I had a really rough breakup at one point back in the end of 2013, beginning of 2014, and I'd been writing a lot as a result of that, songs and poems and prose and shorts, and I looked at them one day, and I thought, well, I'll start going to some open mics and reading them, and they got tremendous and very humbling responses. One poem in particular called Wolfman Jack, and as a result, my friends Brandon and Kate talked me into compiling these. And it took them quite some time to convince me to put these all together. But I decided to take all the poems and prose of my 20s and put them together and put them in a book form. So it's kind of unique in the fact that as you read it, you go through someone's 20s, but the way that I write isn't so specific that you're going through my 20s. So I think it's something that if you're a teenager, you really shouldn't read it. But it does give you some taste of what's to come, and if you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s, it kind of would awaken something in you. And if you're in your 20s and you're reading it, then you're gonna get it completely.
Now, how do you organize something like that if it's a collection of different pieces? Is there a certain order that you orchestrated the book to kind of make it flow, to make sense?
Yeah.
Tell me how you put that together.
Well, there was the first section. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, honestly. I had to read up a lot about how these things are done with collections of poetries and books and prose, and I didn't like any of them. I didn't like the way any of them were done. It was just so formatted and so formulaic, you know what I'm saying? It's just like rigid. So I thought I would compile it to read more like a story, and a lot of these poems really aren't like ba-da-da-da-da, rhyme.
Yeah.
They are more like stories that have a more inner flow than a rhyme to them. So I organized them. I sat down and organized them with poems that led into each other rather than poems that made sense as a category.
Yeah.
There's several poems about love. There's several about sex. There's several about random nights driving around and intoxication and this and that. But those aren't all grouped together. Like they're spread out through a more larger circle of a theme of the things you go through in your 20s, such as like realizing that, I mean, everybody who's in their 20s starting out, and Mark, I don't know if you can recall because you had a different culture and different experiences, but in America, you're in your 20s, 90% of people who are 20, 21, 22 are whiny little entitled bitches. And unless you're just an amazing person, that 10% is. But those 90% that are whiny entitled little bitches who think the world owes them something, they're going to go just find it.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have to put the work into it. Unless they've had a stellar upbringing, they will live their lives like that, and they will make their choices and blame everybody else for them. But the other half of these people in their 20s start out as whiny, entitled little bitches and then learn from other people. They open up their mind, and one day they say, I'm not smart, I'm going to be wise. And being wise is realizing that I don't know shit, and I'm going to learn as much as I can every day. And so if you make that conscious choice in your early 20s, you go one path. If you don't, when your parents are gone and your family's gone and you're on your own, you're fucking lost. And I just see so many people who are in that age bracket that are going to be lost in 10 or 20 years. But so the first section of the book is organized, just for an example, as those years where you really think that everything's just going to fall into place for you the way it's supposed to in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then realizing it doesn't. So, and then every section has kind of like an underlying theme like that isn't announced, but you get it by the end of the section.
Yeah, and that can be kind of tragic too when you think you have an idea of where you want your life to go and it doesn't go in that direction, and you're trying to battle that, and that can be very aggravating and really really depressing almost as someone who's in their 20s to kind of see maybe you expect to be somewhere at a certain point in your life and you're not exactly where you hope to be.
Yeah, hit me years ago when we had backers, we had an advance, we had everything going for us, and we had Chris Potter literally signed on to do our record, and we were 2 weeks away from flying to London, and I found out I had throat tumors, and you just realize things are going to get in the way of your plans. You're not in charge of everything, and when you let go of that constant trying to make everything fall into your plan, and instead making the best of everything that's coming your way, and then manipulating your path to go towards a better direction rather than constantly fighting everything and ripping out weeds and knocking down trees just to get to where you want to be, you don't enjoy the journey there. So I think it's really the choice that you have to make to just be glad. Like, look, man, I got to transition into being a full-time musician and writer because of this band. I got to see the world because of this band, and I have no regrets because of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I could look at it like, oh, we never had a mainstream hit. All we ever were on the college charts. I could look at it as we never sold out more than a 550 cap room. I'm not going to look at all those negatives.
Mm-hmm.
I got to play for tens of thousands of people in the past 9 years. And maybe Coldplay is going to come do that in one show. But I fucking got to do it for 9 years, you know what I mean?
Sure.
People showed up and they paid $15 a ticket to see my band or whatever. And that means a lot. And these people own the records, and then you get letters. You get a letter from Italy, and all they want you is to say hello to all their friends on Facebook. And you do it, and it's made their day. And it's just mind-boggling that these things happen like that. And those are the things I look at.
It's amazing how people find you. How do people find you? Because we've experienced something similar here at the River's Edge, where we don't have a lot of international listeners, but we do have a few. And we ended up getting a message, an email from somebody in, I believe, Italy or something, who said, we love local, we love radio, we're a big fan of radio, and we want you to send us some merchandise, a T-shirt or something. Well, he doesn't realize how poor we are here at the River's Edge, and all we've got are magnets, so we're probably going to send
Magnets are cool, man.
Yeah, we're going to send him a magnet, but it was interesting. You wonder, how does this person find us? And it's kind of, it's cool because we're 100% local music, so they're listening to music that you're not going to be able to find
Yeah.
really anywhere else.
Well, your unique challenge is you are the radio people are listening to. For us, when the college radio or the international radio played us, they had a website they could tell people because we put the biggest thing you can do as a musician is put your website on every piece of everything you mail out. Your
Yes.
CD, your trade cards, your promotional, everything. And so our website was on everything, and our Facebook was on everything. So it made it easy. Like when someone would play our songs or promote us, they just say our website. Googling the show is a pain, but more and more these days, if you Google the show and then type in band or music, we're coming up, which is a result of it just being a little more relevant.
Well, it's interesting to see that transition as well, because we're the River's Edge Radio Network, but there are a million River's Edges. I probably picked one of the worst names as far as being unique. There's a River's Edge canoe place, for example.
I don't relate to that.
What? Oh.
Yeah, the show I thought was very creative, very. No one's ever done that, right?
Well, the River's Edge I didn't even come up with, so I stole all my names.
I was literally at my grandmother's house pooping when I thought of the name of the band.
I asked John Delano of KDK. He and I were bullshitting, and I said, I don't know what to name this thing. And he's like, I said, I want it to be something to kind of symbolize the city, but I don't want it to be like super Pittsburgh because I don't want to go into that Yinzer.
I like it, man. It's like because you're on, it's edgy. You play the stuff that YEP won't touch, and you are really independent radio. And Pittsburgh doesn't have actual independent radio anymore. Like, no offense to YEP, but them calling themselves independent is like Hillary Clinton calling herself progressive. It's just, but I mean, my problem with that station is back in the 90s, I found so much local music and so much new music from listening to them. And now it's just, you can almost predict what they're going to play. And it's really, it took them 3 albums to really play the war on drugs when other stations in the country were playing slave ambient nonstop 4 years ago. So
well, I've noticed that a lot of the bands that they play, it's bands that you're going to hear on the X and everywhere else. It's just maybe songs that they're not playing on the X.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know. It's a name that's popular, and for a while it was hard to get our name out there. I guess on like Google, like when you Google the River's Edge, like we'd be like 4 pages back. Well, now if you Google River's Edge Pittsburgh, you don't even have to click the radio. You don't even have to put in the little apostrophe, and we're number 1, we're number 3, we're number 4. All of our different mediums, whether it be through TuneIn Radio, Twitter, or whatever, they're all popping up. But it does take a long time to get to that point. So
it only took you not that long. It took us 8 years to get to that
yeah,
point.
it took us a year, so we're doing pretty well as far as that goes. But yeah, I'm very excited. The show, it's going to be the show of the show, I guess.
The show concert.
The show concert.
It was so hard. We always had to stray away from the word show and just call them concerts all the time.
Yeah. But it's kind of cool, though. We are the show. It's going to be August 20th. And what time again? Because my computer's on the fritz. I'm afraid to click anything.
Doors are at 6, the show's at 7, and it's all ages.
All ages. So that'll be a good time. It's going to be at the Smalls at the main theater. If you haven't been there, they've done so much updating in the last year. It looks like a completely different theater than it was just a year ago. So yeah. Very cool. So I'm excited to check that out. It is, yes. And where can people get your book?
They can go to facebook.com/ I forget what it is. Yeah, they could go to JSL Official, or they could Google 20-something book, or they can also type in a Facebook 20-something book, or they're just the easiest. Every other website's too long to memorize. So
very cool. So check that out. We're going to bring in Mark up next here on the River's Edge.